Just gonna start this video out by saying I got my editing situation figured out. We're back to normal and let's go. What's going on YouTube? Today I bring you my number one power rank team for the 2021 NFL season. A bit of a delay, but that's fine because we've reached the end of our journey. 32 team breakdown and analyses. And as you saw by the title, that is the Buccaneers because, I mean, really, you shouldn't have anyone else here. They're the number one team in football. They've perhaps got the best roster that I've ever seen. You know, in terms of the current NFL, they just won the Super Bowl for a reason, and I think now that, they've got that chemistry down already with Brady and stuff, like this team could be even deadlier this season and has a very good chance to repeat, and that is a very tough thing to do. So starting off with the quarterback room, Tom Brady, obviously, still at the top of his game. Statistically, he just had, I believe, his best season in the NFL. At 44, the guy can still do it just as well as anybody. I don't think he's necessarily a top 5 quarterback anymore just because of his athletic limitations. And that's weird considering it's Tom Brady. He's never really had to rely on his athleticism all that much. But I do think with some natural age and regression, he just won the Super Bowl, obviously, just had a fantastic season. But I think this is the first year where we might see a bit of actual regression from Brady. He's had some, less than average years in his own terms. But I think this could be the first year where we kind of see perhaps just an average season by Tom Brady. Maybe not. It's definitely not a sure thing, but there is a decent chance. Blaine Gabbert as a backup is, whatever for the Buccaneers. He could be something. But Kyle Trask is really the guy that interests me here because I do like Kyle Trask. He was in the Heisman running for a reason. He's a guy similar to some other guys that I've talked about before, Bud Dupree, for example, that he thrives with talent around him. Obviously, players are going to play better with, talent around them, but there are guys like Kyle Trask that thrive with talent around them. And I think he's an interesting developmental piece for the Buccaneers. Something that he struggled with at Florida was just a lot of those core mechanics. He improved it in his last year there for sure, but I think if there's anyone really to teach you about core mechanics, accuracy, reading a play, I mean, there's not much better than Tom Brady. And in the current league, there isn't better than Tom Brady. One of the smartest quarterbacks of all time, obviously. I like the pickup of Trask. I think he holds a lot of upside and potential, and he's someone that you can develop and teach a lot of those traits. And Brady is the perfect guy for that. So with the quarterback room, it's an A. You've got a potential young guy with Kyle Trask, a potentially serviceable backup, and still one of the best in the game right now. And the GOAT, Tom Brady. So I'll give them an A. Running back is a deep room, but it's not necessarily the best for the Buccaneers. Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones make up an interesting duo. Now, Ronald Jones isn't by the best. He's by far not the best pass catcher in the world, but I definitely do think between the two, he can serve as more of that rotational catching type receiver. Fournette took a lot more snaps in the playoffs, and I think that was fine. Maybe Rojo was just feeling a little bit of the wear and tear. Perhaps he just, either way, Leonard Fournette was taking more snaps in the playoffs. And, I keep saying, as I'm sure you do know, Leonard Fournette, can push it in there. And Ronald Jones is more of the chain type running back. I think they make up a decent duo. Neither one is really just, that top running back. Giovanni Bernard is a solid catching, playmaking running back. However, definitely the best receiving running back of this room. Keyshawn Vaughn was also an interesting pick from a couple years ago now. I think he is a guy that does hold upside and could get going similar to a guy like Zach Moss from the Bills, where I don't feel like they've really gotten going yet, but I think they hold that upside. So, I mean, it's a deep room. I mean, even the fourth guy is a serviceable starter, but that's kind of the case with all these guys, is even the starter is just not the best running back in the league. I'd say he's, top 20, top 25 around there. So yeah, it's a deep room, but just not really those starter level guys here. So I'll give it it's a C. It just comes off as meh to me. I don't feel like because Sean Vaughn again holds up that upside. I don't know if he'll necessarily hit it. If he does, it's because this offensive line. It is a very good offensive line, but we'll get to them later. Either way, running back room is kind of meh to me right now. At receiver, Mike Evans. Seems like there's been a bit of a debate recently on whether he's overrated or underrated. I'm on the boat where he's underrated. Like, he doesn't do anything specifically well. He is a great, deep, contested receiver. And yeah, he's always had those guys that would chuck it up to him. But I mean, being that he didn't have that kind of throw it deep guy with Brady last year, he still did great. I mean, like it or not, the dude is a stat monster. He's the only receiver ever to start off his career with 7 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and that's for a reason. He is definitely talented. I would argue he's top 5. I'd probably say he's number 5. If anything, he's not below top 10 for me. Mike Evans is a very talented receiver, great jump ball guy, and the perfect Robin to Mike Evans' Batman is Chris Godwin, who's more of that, route runner. I'd say a bit more speedy than Mike Evans. Not necessarily a speed threat, but a bit more speedy. I just think he's a great Robin to Mike Evans. He is just kind of good at everything else that Mike Evans isn't. He's not the best contested catcher in the world. Is still a bit raw in some aspects, actually, but he's still young. And so I think he's only getting better. Evans, if they do lose him, I think you have a serviceable guy with, well, more than serviceable, but I mean, if he needs to step up in any given second, at the very worst, he is a serviceable receiver. They brought back Antonio Brown, I believe, just for 1 year. He was pretty solid in the playoffs, especially that Super Bowl. He contributed a lot, but he's just not the same guy he used to be, and I think that's pretty evident. He was a no factor in the regular season. And he doesn't need to be anything special. I mean, being that he's the number 3 receiver on this team, he's still probably the best number 3 in the NFL. He's still a talented receiver, but there's no telling whether he's gonna have a new lawsuit next week. Still a great receiver, just he's just not the guy he used to be, and again, that's obvious. Scotty Miller is a very talented receiver as well. I think he holds a lot of upside, and I really think, if you lose Mike Evans, Antonio Brown, you feel like one of these guys have got to step up, and I would put my money on Scotty Miller. He has shown some extremely nice things for the Buccaneers at times here, and he's just their number 4, and really he's just started to get going. So Scotty Miller, really nice step guy, and I think he can step up for the Buccaneers sometime in the future. Tyler Johnson, kind of the similar case. He's shown flashes. I also do believe he holds upside. Similar case, I just think if I had to bet on anyone, I'd bet on Scotty Miller. And then they picked up Jalen Darden, the kind of out of nowhere guy from this year's class, late in the draft process. The dude's just a really solid receiver, to be honest. I think honestly, you could have a case here of, maybe you're able to sign Chris Godwin long term. Eventually, Evans maybe leaves. Antonio Brown's gone after this year. There are definitely some guys to step up here. Darden could make a great impact, potentially as mainly a slot receiver. Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson have both shown flashes, but I really, really do like Scotty Miller as the future here. This Buccaneers room, it's deep. It's got great talent at the top. It's got a great quarterback throwing it. This receiving room is probably the best in the NFL. It's really good. It's pretty good. So I'm going to give it an A+ for that. Then at tight end, potentially the best tight end room in the NFL as well. Rob Gronkowski was pretty good, to be honest, being the fact that he hadn't played football for a while there, coming back, playing with his old teammate Tom Brady. I mean, really his only teammate Tom Brady, only quarterback ever. He was played good, and especially in the playoffs, he was solid. In the Super Bowl, there was a legit case for him to win MVP. I mean, Gronk can still do it. Maybe he's not the same Gronk he used to be. Maybe he's not, a top 5 tight end, but he is still at the very worst, a solid tight end, and at the very worst, still an elite run blocking tight end, well, a blocking tight end in general. So Gronk, I mean, yeah, great tight end there for the Buccaneers, and it doesn't stop there. Although he didn't play last year, OJ Howard, when he's on the field, is a very good tight end. Arguably a top 20 guy as a number one. So the fact that he's your backup, that's pretty good. But the guy that was playing for them last year's backup was Cameron Brate, and he was really good. Um, Again, as your backup, like he's a starter on some teams. I definitely think he starts over guys like Anthony Ferkser or Chris Herndon, or well, although he's on the Vikings now, he'll probably be starting for them since Irv Smith is hurt. Or anyone on the Jaguars roster, he'd be starting for a lot of teams. So the fact that he's your number three, probably number two if OJ Howard stuff is still going on, but that is still a fantastic backup, and I mean the best number three tight end in the NFL, because he is pretty solid. So tight end, yet another good room for this Buccaneers offense, and I'm going to give it a B+. It is a pretty good deep, maybe the deepest room in the NFL. Then on the offensive line, Donovan Smith is easily the weakest member of this line. Although he did have a career year, you got to look at the line around him. He was still good, obviously, and that's good. Obviously you don't want him to be bad. Even though the rest of your offensive line is great. But he was great, so that's fine. He is a little bit older, so you're looking for a replacement sometime soon. They did draft Robert Hainsey, who can play tackle for them, but we'll see. No one behind him, but Donovan Smith did have probably his best year last year, and is still a solid tackle right now, but you're looking for a guy of the future. So because of that, I will give it a B-, but yeah, you do need to find a guy for the future, and I expect him to drop a little bit in play this year. At left guard, Ali Marpet, one of the elite guards in the NFL. He was pretty darn good as well last year. Definitely was a big reason why Donovan Smith played as good as he did. Sedarius Hutchinson, really the only guy worth talking about here, a guy with a bit of potential, but otherwise, I mean, it's just Marpet here, but he is still a top 5 guard. Especially top 5 left guard, but arguably a top 5 guard in the NFL. So he's great to have there. He's definitely better than Donovan Smith, so I'll give it a B+, but again, you should probably try to find at least someone behind him. But he is still a great guard for the Buccaneers. And then at center, Ryan Jensen, top 5 center in the NFL, arguably top 3. He was pretty good. I don't imagine Robert Hainsey would play much center for the Buccaneers. He could definitely play guard. He does have that nice versatility, but I don't think I'd see him playing center for the Buccaneers. But Ryan Jensen is a great starter there for the Buccaneers. This offensive line really good. So I'll move it down to a B. I think he's a little bit less. I think he's a little bit lesser talent than Ali Marpet. But once again, no real depth here. But yeah, so I'm gonna give it a B. And then a right guard, Alex Kappa, also a pretty good guard. I don't think he's quite Ryan Jensen or Ali Marpet level, but he is like the tier below that. This time he does have the upside of having, a Robert Hainsey behind him, which I guess you could, put him as a backup to, Donovan Smith or Ali Marpet too, but I'll just keep him over here where he's at. So Alex Kappa, he's a good guard. He's got a guy with some potential and Robert Hainsey behind him. I do think the Buccaneers are the right team to try to develop a guy like Hainsey. I do think he's a nice fit, and he holds upside for sure. So right guard, it's also going to be a B, because although Kappa's not as good, you do have at least someone with some potential to be better than Kappa, honestly. And so I will give that a B as well. And then right tackle, Tristan Wirfs. Let me tell you this. Tristan Wirfs legitimately could have won Offensive Rookie of the Year. And that's being given the fact that Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson just had the best respective rookie campaigns of history. Tristan Wirfs was that good. Like, a tackle is not supposed to be that good out of the gate. And Tristan Wirfs was better than what you would expect. I mean, he was just great. That's just plain and simple. He was elite in his first year, and I only expect him to go up from here. I think there will be a time soon where he'll be a top 5 offensive lineman. He is really that good. So Tristan Wirfs just rounds out this fantastic offensive line. No depth, but B+, and he's only going to get better. That rounds out a great offensive line and overall a fantastic offense. And we haven't even talked about the defense yet, which is also pretty darn scary. So as we start off and go look at that, starting with one defensive end room, Ndamukong Suh, And yes, I know I'm pronouncing that right. For some reason, I just cannot pronounce it correctly. So don't go yelling at me in the comments like I once had someone do. We're just gonna call him Suh. I mean, he's not the guy he used to be. Obviously, he used to be a dominant force in the NFL. He's just not that guy anymore. But he is still, at the very worst, a solid starter here for the Buccaneers. Getting older, you're gonna have to find someone to replace him soon. I mean, really, the only quote holes to me on this team are one of them's defensive end, just because again, your one guy at defensive end is getting kind of old, and that's no disrespect to Golston, but it's still good, just getting old is all. Patrick O'Connor is not the best backup in the world. Not much else to say about him. Don't know who Khalil Davis is, I'm going to be honest. But, I mean, Sub by himself, is going to give you a solid grade. O'Connor, honestly, just don't know enough to say whether he's not a good backup, obviously, but I can't sit here and say he's a bad backup, but I'll give this room a B minus. Just getting a little old. I don't think O'Connor is the future here, so it's whatever. At nose tackle, Vita Vea, one of the emerging stars in the NFL. Now, no one behind him, because I mean I've heard the name, but don't know who he is to be honest. Vita Vea, they really did miss him last year, and he definitely made an impact when he came back. Yeah, he is a dominant force on the defensive line. He's great. So yeah, no depth, but by himself, it's going to give this a B plus. And he's only going to get better, which is the scary part. The other defensive end room, there's at least a little bit of depth here. William Golston is good, but he's just not that good, especially considering he's playing alongside guys like Vita Vea, Pierre Paul, Shaq Barrett. I mean, I just imagine on a different team, Golston would just not be that good, to be honest. I mean, Steve McLendon makes up for a fine backup, but still not the best in the world. To me, it's a meh room, but there's no upside here either, so it's going to be a C minus for me. At West Side linebacker, Jason Pierre-Paul, JPP, he's obviously started to regress a little bit, but he's still a solid guy. I think especially when you're still playing again with guys like Vey, Shaq Barrett. It's just, you don't need to be the best in the world. He still does what he needs to. He's still a solid run defender. And he does his part, so you don't need much more from him, to be honest. Now, I don't know why they have Joe Tryon over here, who I guess it's Joe Tryon Shoyinka now. I don't know why they don't have him over here, but he's obviously the replacement for JPP, and Joe Tryon was really good in preseason. I mean, I wasn't in love with the pick. I had him as like a second rounder. I did like the athleticness to him, but I just didn't know if he was much more, if he could really develop his game beyond the athleticism. But it really looks like he did in the preseason. So he's a betting favorite for not a favorite, but he is one of the better favorites for defensive rookie of the year, and I think he could win that. Joe Tryon could be kind of a surprise guy this year, and yeah, I mean, he just looked really good. So I don't know why they have him over here. He's definitely going to be the backup to JPP in my opinion. So with him behind him, you do have still a solid guy that's just aging, but I think you got your replacement here with Joe Tryon, who looked really good. So I'm going to give that room an A- for right now. At inside linebacker, this is the best inside linebacker duo in the NFL. Devin White and Levante David, that's just elite. I mean, Levante David, the elite run defending, still good in pass coverage, but elite run defending, just big bruiser guy. And then you got Devin White, who is that elite pass defender who can still chip in on the run for sure. I mean, those two together, it's just like yin and yang. Devin White's only going to get better. David's still one of the elite defensive forces. That's a great room. You got KJ Britt, who brings some nice depth to the room. And then Grant Stewart, we all just know him because he's Mr. Irrelevant, but could be a potential contributor to the linebacker room. Overall, you have the best duo in the NFL. Two elite guys. One's only getting better. Some okay depth. That's going to be an A to me. And then at the other outside linebacker room, Shaquille Barrett. He's been a success story, in Tampa Bay ever since he signed there. Never really just showed anything with Denver, and then came over here and was just dominant. I mean, led the league in sacks a year ago. Was still great this last year. Also had a legit argument for Super Bowl MVP. In my opinion, he should have been Super Bowl MVP. Shaq Barrett, just a dominant force. No depth here. I mean, Cam Gill, but he's on IR. Yeah, no depth here, but it doesn't matter. As long as he stays healthy, which he's never really had an issue with injuries, Shaq Barrett is one of the game's elite pass rushers right now. And so him by himself will give it an A minus. It would be an A if they had a bit of depth, but still an A minus. Shaq Barrett, one of the most elite pass rushers in the game right now. I think he's already like 28 or 29 though. And then at cornerback, it's not the best in the world. When you have a pass rush like the Buccaneers and a brilliant defensive coordinator, Vea, Golston, Pierre-Paul, Barrett, the addition of, Joe Tryon, Devin White, and David can both get on the pass rush. When you have such a good pass rush, it's going to make the secondary's job easier, and it definitely does. There's a reason that this defense was so elite. I don't think on their own the secondary is that good, but when you have this pass rush, they do play better, obviously. Carlton Davis, Sean Murphy-Bunting make up a pretty solid duo for the Buccaneers here. Neither one's especially good, but they're still kind of young. I mean, the Buccaneers actually have the youngest paid secondary in the NFL at only $14 million. And so when they still play at the level they do, regardless of the pass rush, not regardless, more in terms of with the pass rush, the fact that they still play that good, and for that cheap, that's just a deal for the Buccaneers. You have three really solid guys because you also have Jamel Dean there, who is a starter level guy on most teams, and so he's your number 3 here. There's no one especially elite here, but just combined with the pass rush and the fact that you have 3 really solid guys, it just makes for a nice corner room. Ross Cockwell has a bit of upside, but it really doesn't matter. You got a really good trio here with those 3. So I'll give the room a B. At free safety, Jordan Whitehead, you could definitely get better. To me, it's the weakest position on the roster at free safety. Chris Cooper, a potential intriguing guy, but Jordan Whitehead, not a very good starting safety. Again, play gets elevated a bit by the pass rush, but he's not the best guy in the world. So that's going to be the worst room to me at a D+, but the fact that there's only one D room on this entire roster shows you how good it is. And then at strong safety, though, Antoine Winfield was great in his rookie year. And once again, I only expect him to get better. He was great. Pass rush, once again, going to help, but just doesn't matter. He was fantastic and is only going to get better. Mike Edwards is also a very solid backup, so that definitely helps having a pretty good backup with a really bright young secondary player here with Antoine Winfield. So overall, I'm going to give that a B+. This defense is just as scary as the offense. It is aging, but you started to get some replacements. JPP at least has his replacement with Joe Tryon likely. Maybe you should get a defensive end next, but either way, this is still a scary pass rush with a really good secondary, especially when you give them this pass rush, a brilliant defensive coordinator. So overall, this defense is just as good. And then special teams, Ryan Suckup is a solid kicker. Bradley Pinion, a solid punter. Kick returner could be a multiple different guys. I really like Jalen Darden. I think that was another good pick. A reason to pick him. He brings that solid return game for you. So I think he's probably going to be your main returner. And special teams itself, also elite because, for a team to win the Super Bowl and be as good as they are, you need a good special teams, and they have that. So, yeah, roster is maybe the best roster I've ever seen. There's like 3, quote, holes, and even that one hole at free safety is not that bad. The worst room on the roster is a D+, and the rest are all C- or better, majority of them being B's and A's. Yeah, maybe aging in some places, but this is a scary, scary team. They just won the Super Bowl for a reason. There's a reason they're here at number 1. So now let's go take a look at their coaching culture and schedule. And another thing that definitely helps the Buccaneers here is that their schedule is not very difficult. When you have a roster as good, a coaching staff as good, a roster as experienced, a lot of these games are going to be pretty easy. The only tough games that really jump out to me here are the Bills, the Rams, and maybe teams like the Patriots, the Saints. Otherwise, I really just don't see that many tough games here. When you combine such an elite offense with such an elite defense, teams like the Cowboys, right? Although they have a great offense, I mean, that's just not going to be that useful if they don't even have that good of a defense because the Buccaneers are so elite on both ends. Um, I don't think this team will go win. Yeah, they definitely could. That's the thing is like with the Browns, the Chiefs, and the Buccaneers. I think all three of those teams could go undefeated. I just feel like the one that has the best chance to do it is the Buccaneers. I still don't think they will, but I just feel like they got the best chance. The only tough games to me on this schedule is the Bills, Rams, and maybe the Patriots and Saints. Those are all winnable games for again just such a talented and experienced roster. Coaches is its own thing because the coaches here and just the coaching in general for the Buccaneers is also fantastic. I mean, Bruce Arians obviously a great coach. It was a little questionable at first on whether they'd really click Brady and Bruce Arians, but they did. They really got along, and I think Bruce Arians did the correct thing by just letting Brady run the show. And Bruce Arians even said that he kind of just got to a point where he'd let Brady just do things, and that's why they brought in Antonio Brown, and it worked. Brady knows how to win Super Bowls. He knows what a team needs. And so Bruce Arians, I think he did the right thing, but still helped build this roster. Leftwich is also a good coordinator. Again, Brady's running the offense, but Leftwich does do a good job. And really, I mean, to me, the highlight of this coaching staff is Todd Bowles, who is just such a brilliant defensive coordinator. He's helped assemble, but not only assemble, but also coach such an elite defense to where it's just the whole coaching staff is filled with as much talent as the roster. The culture is also fantastic here with the Buccaneers, and that's considering they have guys like Suh and Antonio Brown on the roster who are notorious for some issues and stuff on and off the field. But yeah, I just think when you put it all together, a pretty easy schedule with such a talented, deep, and experienced roster, with maybe the greatest head coaching unit, or not just head coaching, but maybe the greatest coaching staff in the NFL. You put all that together, and to me, the reigning Super Bowl champs, the Buccaneers, are the number one team for the 2021 NFL season. But that is going to be the video, guys. Thank you for watching all these videos with me. 32 teams. We're going to do our last playoff season predictions, awards, and a final mock draft. Hopefully before the season starts, we might have the mock draft on Thursday. But either way, we got through these. Thanks for sticking with me. If you guys like the video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see all you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.